Anybody who has been to both San Francisco and Sacramento knows that these cities have very different climates. And you'd especially know that if you've been there during the summer. Sacramento gets way hotter than San Francisco. Now, what's weird is their annual average temperature is actually pretty similar. Sacramento's annual average temperature is about 59. San Francisco's is about 57. But anybody who's been to these places during the summer knows that Sacramento is going to have a much bigger temperature range. And this isn't only true for these cities, this is true for if you were to compare the coast to inland spots, basically anywhere. We're just using this as an example. So to understand this example and what I've been throwing out some terms like temperature range, annual, average, monthly temperature. So we're just going to break it down in some plots here. On the x-axis, we have months of the year. So it goes from January through July through December. And then on the y-axis, we have average monthly temperature. So anybody who's lived in San Francisco knows it's pretty cool all year round. But it also doesn't get too cold. So in January, we might be around 50 degrees. We come up slightly as we get into, it seems like October is usually our warmest month. And then it's going to come down into December. And we're going to have a range of about 11. Going to go to maybe 50 to 61, something like that. Sacramento, on the other hand, is going to have a much larger range. During January, it's actually going to be colder than San Francisco. It's going to come way up here towards the summer, and then it's going to come way back down. And our range is going to be more like 30. So that is somewhat interesting because these cities are only a few hours apart. Why are they so different? So to understand that, we can look at a different example here. So here we have the ocean, we have San Francisco, we have Sacramento, and we're looking at it during daytime. But before we actually break down the different cities and what's going on, just want to draw a little example here. So imagine that's a cup, and this is a rock. Maybe not the best rock. And then our cup is going to be full of water. We're going to put this cup and this rock out in the sun for, let's say, 5 hours in the sunlight. Then we come back 5 hours later and we put our finger in the water. Now the temperature of the water will have increased a little bit. So maybe it feels a little bit warmer than when you originally put it there, but it's not that bad. You might not want to drink it, but it's certainly not boiling. Versus the temperature of the rock has gone way up. You put it on, and this would be more of an extreme example if we were talking about like a metal. If you put your finger on the metal, you're going to burn your finger. And the reason for that has to do with specific heat. So this is our little science word for the day. Specific heat, or you also hear heat capacity. And that is how well you absorb heat. So the basic thing that I'm trying to say here is water doesn't warm up as fast as, let's say, a metal or a rock. And then the reverse is also true. If we put this out on a very cold night, the water might cool down by a few degrees, but then the rock is going to cool down by many degrees. If you touch it to your skin, it's going to feel freezing. So the same exact thing is happening to our landscape here. So we'll just think about this during the day. It's noon hours to 3 o'clock. Over the land, the air over the land is going to get very hot. The reason for that is because the land is heating up very quickly, just like our rock did. Then we look at the air over the water. Water only heats up by maybe 1 to 2 degrees. Any surfers out there probably wish it was heating up a lot more. So along the water, it's going to remain pretty cold. Then we have this little intermediate area right along the coast. Now that would warm up the same as Sacramento, but it's close enough to the coast and our winds are typically going from west to east. So some of that cold air is going to spill in over the coastal cities and keep it nice and mild, almost like a little natural air conditioning. Now there's one other aspect that's happening here too. So just going to back this up. Let's just say San Francisco does heat up. It gets very hot here too. What's going to happen to this hot air is it's going to rise up like this. So as it rises up, you can't just have a vacuum. Something has to fill in. So just going to back up right here. So our air rises up right here. And then what's going to happen is that's going to turn into what you'd call an onshore wind. And that's actually going to pull this cold air in over San Francisco. And sometimes it pulls in some fog too. Whereas you get some hot air lifting up over Sacramento, and it's too far away to feel that ocean influence. So it's just going to stay hot. So what I'm trying to say there is the reason Sacramento has a much bigger temperature swing is because it's not moderated by the ocean. So while Sacramento goes from maybe 40 degrees in the morning to 95 degrees in the afternoon, San Francisco might go from 45 degrees in the morning to 65 degrees in the afternoon. It's going to be a much smaller temperature swing. And you can imagine the exact same thing happens in reverse at nighttime. The valley is going to cool off a lot more, whereas the ocean is actually going to keep San Francisco a little bit warmer at night because of the same moderating effect. It's not going to cool down as much. That, just as I was saying that sounded like it's still a little bit confusing. So we're just going to go into that example as well. So now let's turn our sun off and let's make this nighttime. We're going to draw the moon in here. Okay, so now we're talking about night and our temperatures are going down. So we know that, let's use a nice white, almost represents snow. So temperature is going to be going way down over Sacramento, and over land, it's going to be going down just a little bit. So we end up being very cold over the land, and then we're still going to be cool over the water, but not as cold as over the land. Then for San Francisco, we're just going to be in that nice little mild contrast between the two. It's still going to be cold at night, but we'll get some of that ocean influence keeping us slightly warmer. So hopefully this little example made sense. If you still have any questions, let me know in the comments. I can always redo this video if it didn't make total sense. But overall, the basic idea here is that inland cities heat up a lot more and they cool down a lot more than coastal cities because land heats up and cools down a lot faster than water. And then our coastal cities feel some of that moderating effect from the ocean air. So hopefully you learned something throughout this video, and thanks for watching.